Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Let's start our video with a short story about another crazy neighbor who calls the police at every opportunity. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Neighbor threatens to call cops. Me and my friends were shooting off some sparklers, fountains, and cherry blossoms in our backyard, which are all legal to do where I live. Our neighbor immediately storms into our house through the front door and enters into the backyard. He proceeded to call us a handful of names, obviously trying to make us feel bad and guilty, then threatens to call the cops on us. We tell him to get off our property because he's obviously trespassing, and he immediately gets defensive and tries to make up some BS excuse about why he's allowed to trespass if he feels threatened. Eventually he leaves and we quickly call the cops on him. The cops basically went over to his house and reiterated what we'd told him. The cops explained to us that if there was any more trouble with him, we could call and have him arrested. We proceeded to run through all 20 Piccolo Petes we had for some icing on top. Clarification: if we were doing this past 10 or 11 at night, I'd have felt pretty bad, or if the guy had kids, I would have stopped and done the fireworks elsewhere. But this guy's some 30-something-year-old without kids who constantly threatens to call the cops on us. So F him. And our second story. Wanted $800 worth of plywood for free, and fake cat, and more. Everyone knows the cost of plywood is sky high recently at around $70 to $80 per sheet. The roofers just finished removing all the old shingles and installed underlayment. They all left for the day and will be back tomorrow to install the shingles after the inspector checks the underlayment and one required row of installed shingles. I hear my doorbell ring, then someone pounding on my door continually like it's an emergency. I answer, thinking it would be the inspector, or an emergency. Instead, it's two old ladies in their 60s and an old Cadillac parked behind my car in the driveway. They ask if they could have the 11 sheets of 3/4-inch plywood stacked behind the tree. It's not a trivial amount they were asking for. I explained the roofers haven't finished the roof yet, and what isn't used they'll be taking back. They looked surprised that I'm having roof work done, even though they're literally standing right next to a 20-foot dumpster by my front door filled with old torn shingles. I mean, they had to walk around the dumpster to bang on my door. Then one of the women said, "Well, can you give us 2 sheets? You're not using all of them. We want to build a porch." The audacity put me on my heels for a moment, but I was kind to them because they claimed to live a block away and I just moved in 2 months ago. Again, politely I said they couldn't have any of my plywood, but Home Depot has plenty for sale. They said Home Depot wants like $80 a sheet though, to which I replied, "I know, that's how much the roofing company charged me per sheet." They seemed to shut up and then they started walking back towards their car. I have a fake cat figurine near my front door. It's quite lifelike at a distance. Then the butch brunette looked around and asked, "How much for the cat figurine?" At this point, I'm starting to get upset with their pushy behavior and treating my property like a flea market. I say, "Sorry, it's not for sale. Have a nice day," and close the door. I watched through the peephole to see them drive away and thought that was the end of the bizarre encounter. Later that night, as I'm leaving to go to the convenience store, I see a sticky note on the window of my project car in the driveway that reads, "Wanted to buy car," with a phone number. They must have come back at night when I was at the store. WTF. My fake cat now lives next to the back door, moved all the lumber to the backyard, and will be setting up security cameras. People like that tend to not understand the word no. And our next story. Take you to court? Why, I didn't know you felt that way. I once rented a property through an agency from 2004 to 2006. Due to my ex-partner's explosive and violent temper, we'd just been handed an eviction notice. There was damage to the property that was unfixed at the time we were evicted. Damage that was in the form of fist and hammer-sized holes in walls, etc. We obviously didn't receive any of the bond deposit back as the repair costs more than absorbed the amount. There was also an added sum of about $1,700 extra to cover the rest of the costs incurred repairing the damage. The amount was forwarded to a debt collections agency. This collection amount was in both of our names as we had jointly been on the lease agreement. I was not upset at the agency. They were just doing their job by being a good advocate for the owner of the property at this stage. Taking the bond and charging us for the repair was standard and not nasty, vindictive, or overkill in the slightest. My anger came later. Although I must admit I was a bit miffed to be duly held financially responsible for the damage caused by my ex, but due to the nature of the joint lease, not much could be legally done. I was just grateful we'd parted ways not long after. A few years post-eviction, I wanted to get my life more organized in many areas and tie up any loose ends that would impede me moving forward, a clean slate, so to speak, so the debt issue came first. After many phone calls and some paperwork exchange, plus an escalation or two, the debt collection agency finally agreed to split the $1,700 damages bill between the ex and myself. Now, I could pay off half and not be held accountable for his portion any longer. This had to be done without his consent, as he refused. I'm unsure as to why, possibly hoping I would pay the whole lot to rebuild my credit rating, or most likely just to be annoying. Once I'd paid off my portion of the collector's debt, I thought I was done with the whole business and the black mark against my name. Not so, unfortunately. It turns out that the state I lived in had a blacklist that real estate agencies and leasers could add tenants' names to. It's called the TICA list. All they needed was proof that a tenant had behaved in a bad enough manner regarding renting of a property to warrant being listed. Due to the fact that we'd been evicted, the damage, and also owed arrears to a debt agency for repairs we unfortunately qualified. Being on this list made it almost impossible to rent, especially via a real estate agency. After speaking extensively to the RTA, which is a government agency, I found I was definitely eligible to have my name removed from the list, so I started taking action for this to happen. I was able to demonstrate good faith by having paid for half of the damages. It also went in my favor that my partner was abusive, and there was legal evidence of this fact. However, I was told the only way to have my name removed was by the real estate agency, so I approached them and asked for them to do so. They were very helpful initially. If I was able to show them proof that the debt was settled, they were happy to remove my name. At least 7 years had elapsed by this point, so it was considered punishment enough. At the time, after 5 years, your name is usually removed from the TICA list. However, this company apparently kept tabs on who they'd added to the list, and when the person's 5 years expired, they just added them again. Dirty tactics indeed. Obviously, I'd been re-added. So I provided relevant documents to the agency and was assured my name would be removed as soon as they located my file. This apparently had been stored away in archives as much time had passed since I rented with them. I was told this would take a week maximum. All good. So I called a week later and was told to wait another week. Still in kind, helpful, and cordial tone. I called again after that time and was told to wait, you guessed it, another week. And this time I detected a tone of frost in the reply. So I call back more than a week later just to show patience, and now was spoken to in a very haughty manner. I was informed that my request was bothersome, being so because what I asked was not important and finding my file was a waste of their staff time. They'd call me when they got around to it. I expressed how important it was to me personally and then heard the magic words, almost verbatim, "If you want us to do this so badly, we'll only be forced to help you if ordered. Perhaps you should take us to court if you can't be patient. Goodbye." String me along. Okay, game on. I had a feeling this was all done to avoid removing my name as they found my file, also that they were stalling and wanted me to stay blacklisted, but I wasn't backing down without a fight, so I took their advice. I filed against them to have the matter seen in a small claims court. I wanted them to know that not all people will hold indefinitely or continue to be unjustly punished for longer than fair. It was listed to appear in about 4 days from filing. As soon as they received the court date paperwork, I was suddenly bombarded with phone calls. How dare I take the agency to court when they were working their hardest to find my file and help me? Doing my best to sound apologetic for taking their advice, I thanked them for the suggestion, as it seemed there would now be a time frame at least for the matter to be dealt with. On the day of court, I had 3 sheets of paper as my sole evidence. A statement showing that repair bill had been paid and there was no finances outstanding. a statement from the RTA that I was eligible to have my name taken off the TICA list, and lastly, a document stating it was at the behest of the real estate agency to remove my name and that they had no good reason not to. Not one, but two agents for the company showed up to court. When it came before the judge, both parties had to give evidence if relevant. I handed in my 3 pages. Seeing them pass the judge a thick folder of paperwork, including photos of the property damaged, was rather amusing considering they supposedly couldn't find my file when last requested. The judge asked them for a statement. They went on for a few minutes about why I didn't deserve to be removed and justified their stance with the photos and prior rental history with them. All I had to reply was that I had paid for my share of the damages and that the damage was due to my abusive ex, and that I had made restitution as much as I could regarding the matter, with no money owing. The judge then asked why I'd brought it to court. I explained that the company was dragging their feet removing my name when it was a simple matter, and it wasn't necessarily fair to do so. That I'd called them repeatedly and waited while they found my so-hard-to-locate paperwork that had somehow miraculously appeared when convenient. That being on the TICA list was harmful to my future chances at renting, and also that my name had been resubmitted after dropping off the list. The judge queried them why they'd added my name again. They stated it was a company policy. The judge expressed agreement with my stance. I'd been punished enough, had made financial restitution, and now that my file had been located, I was not to be blacklisted anymore. Case decided in my favor. When? The real estate agency was given 48 hours to submit proof to the court and a copy to myself that I was now off the list. Also, they had to pay money that I spent taking them to court. The pair of agents walked out in a huff and were on the phone out in the hallway immediately after vacating the courtroom. I floated past them as I was on a justice high. As I got to the lifts, I thanked them for coming and their sound advice in recommending court. Also, that I was grateful for a bottle of expensive wine, which I will buy with some of the money the court ordered them to pay me. The look on their faces was priceless. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.